Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman, here as always with Tom. How's it going?
Tony, I'm the way I am every time I'm in central Pennsylvania.
Scared?
I was going to say ready for some creamery ice cream, but
yes.
I don't think we're going to have time to get that before the Buckeyes arrive here at their hotel in, I've been told, roughly 15 minutes, but that is always ish on these arrivals.
Yeah, between 15 and an hour and 15,
Yes.
but probably closer to 15, we would hope. So we are here waiting, and when the team does arrive, you guys will arrive with them. You'll see them here. We'll count all of the heads and see who is here and who isn't. Not that anybody is expected to not be here that isn't already known. So
one piece of information we have, and which people watching this also have, is there's a photo that the team tweeted out of a couple of players getting on the plane. One of them was Lathan Ransom. So there was not that there was a ton of drama around that, but he missed last week's game, obviously making the trip. So that is, Ryan Day had indicated he was practicing this week, looked good. He was on track. It seemed to play. He's made the trip. That seems like that is positive news for the Buckeyes.
Yeah, very positive news for a defense that needs as many hands on deck as possible, because this is going to be a game where you need your most disciplined defense. So everybody being in familiar spots will help them remain disciplined, because I would say they've seen everything. They're going to see some new things in this one. They should have seen at least most of what they'll see on film from all of the different things that Penn State offensive coordinator Andy Kotelnicki will do. And we've gone and talked all week about all of the different things. If you watched any of the shows, we've probably harped on it quite a bit. You're going to see some odd stuff. You're going to see a lot of movement, a lot of motion. Most of it is for show, but I'm still waiting for the, as you mentioned a few days ago, like just the
payoff,
the prestige.
Yeah, the prestige of the magic trick. Yeah, you see that a lot where you'll show something and it's like, oh, why would they show that? Well, they've got something coming off of that. Every Andy Kotelnicki game is like, wow, what a crazy, unique thing. I wonder why they showed that there. It's like, well, they have stuff coming off of that. You see Tyler Warren, the tight end, playing quarterback. You saw him running the Wildcat a couple times against Wisconsin. Why did they show that? Well, I'm going to guess there's a jump pass off of there, or there's a pass to the quarterback in motion out of the backfield out of that, or there's a handoff to the quarterback out of the backfield running, and then he rolls right and throws that whatever. There's iterations upon iterations in all of this.
We've seen in big games, and it's a lot of head coaches are reticent to pull that trigger. We know Jim Harbaugh has always been willing to do that, and it has worked for them. I wonder if James Franklin, over his years of losing to Ohio State, losing games like this, is like, you know what? Maybe we should try something like that. Maybe you build up to that and know that you've got one big game this year for them in conference play. I wonder how much is saved for that. But then also, if you've been practicing it all week, you've spent time, you've used time, you have to bring it out during the game. If the opportunity arises, you've utilized all of that time and all of those resources. So you've got to do it. You've got to be able to pull the trigger and say, okay, we're doing this, whether that's a fake punt, whether that is the jump pass, double pass, whatever it is. I'm expecting something. And that's why it's going to be key for the Ohio State defense to be as disciplined as they need to be. And when we talked to Lorenzo Styles Jr. earlier in the week, I asked him about facing two quarterbacks on the field at the same time. And he's like, that's when you need to be your most disciplined, basically.
Absolutely. You can't fall for the window dressing, for the, you don't want to chase the shiny object. You've got to do your 1/11th on that play. And that's something that players and coaches talk about all the time. It's much more true in games like this, where it is a talent equated kind of game. It's even more true in a game like this, where you said it, Penn State really has not had a difficult game this year, and they don't have really difficult game left on the regular season schedule. And if they can win this one, they more or less punch their ticket, it would seem, to Indianapolis to face potentially the Oregon Ducks. They more or less punch their ticket to the college football playoff. There's an awful lot on the line, and all they have to do is beat Ohio State. That's it. Now, that has proven difficult for James Franklin over the years, but this is a game where whatever they got, they're going to empty the clip this weekend, because you don't need to save it to beat Maryland or whoever they have left on their schedule.
They also don't have to win this game to make the playoffs.
No, they don't.
This is likely to be the only game they would lose on their schedule. So, why not, as Ryan Day said before the Georgia game, go down swinging, just swing every single time, swing hard. And I think that's kind of the attitude that Penn State needs to have in this one, whether it works, whether it connects or it doesn't. I think you'd rather go that way and trying to win it rather than just trying not to lose. I don't know that they've done that. Sometimes James Franklin's decisions have cost them games.
Yeah.
So that plays kind of into like the worst thing I could do is do something. So maybe I shouldn't.
It's an interesting philosophical conversation, and I'm kind of surprised we haven't had this yet this week, but they're in a spot where they're number 3 in the country. If they lose to number 4 Ohio State by a field goal, a touchdown, how far are they going to fall in the polls?
Yeah.
6, 7? And then you have a chance to sort of win your way back up to the, moving forward. And if you don't make the Big Ten championship game, then you're 11-1 and you're number 5, 6 in the country. You've got a home playoff game. If that's the downside, maybe you are playing a little bit more conservatively. Because we saw a couple weeks ago, Nebraska really going for it against Indiana, going for it on 4th down and really taking some shots, and it blew up in their face. Now, that doesn't matter because Nebraska could have lost that game by 3 points or 49 points, and functionally it doesn't matter in terms of their whole goal, which is just bowl eligibility. For Penn State, if Penn State loses this game by 49 points, they could theoretically play themselves out of the college football playoff. Now, this is obviously a very theoretical conversation. I am certainly not expecting Ohio State or Penn State to win this game by 49 points. But if you lose big at home and you don't have a signature win otherwise, and the College Football Playoff Committee is looking for a reason to remove someone from the conversation because you have too many qualified teams, you don't want to give them a reason. I mean, it's like Ohio State losing at Purdue in 2018. Yeah, they only lost 1 game, but they lost to a bad team, and they lost by 3 touchdowns, and that was enough to keep Ohio State out of the 4-team playoff. So it's kind of an interesting conundrum for James Franklin. Does he want to really go for it? If you're down by 3 points, you're going for it. If you're down by 10 points, maybe you're kind of throttling down a little bit and trying to keep it from getting to 17.
Yeah, we'll should have asked him during the week. James,
if you're down by 10, are you going to quit?
How do you feel about throttling down?
When I say quiet quitting to you.
So, it is an interesting thing. And they've already made a decision, I think, what they're going to do and how they're going to approach it. Sure. But then circumstances may sweep in there, and it's like, well, you know what? Discretion and valor and all of those good things.
Yeah.
So I'm fascinated to see how they do that. You've also got the quarterback injury possibility there. How healthy are they? With this Penn State offense, we have seen Ohio State struggle to run the ball. How are you expecting the Penn State running game against an Ohio State defense that did pretty well this past week, did well enough at times against Oregon? I'm not expecting a bunch of points, but how do you expect the running game to go for Penn State, and how effective can they be? What is a bad number for Ohio State as well?
A bad number in terms of yards per carry is probably 5. If Penn State's got 4.3 yards per carry and Ohio State's at 3.7, I don't, you'd prefer to win that, but I don't think that that's immediately Ohio State's in a terrible spot. If Penn State's at 5 and Ohio State's at 3.5, that's when I kind of go, okay, you've got to win turnovers and you got to hit a couple explosives and you got to keep them from getting explosives. 5 yards per carry is kind of where I sort of cock an eyebrow and go, that might be a problem. 4.5 obviously is, better than 5, but you're still in a little bit of a concern.
Yeah, and I think that number is also, depends on how long was there a home run in there that has skewed everything. Yeah. So
and the buses are apparently getting close, right. So we are on standby here. Team managers coming out right now to welcome the team. The buses were apparently getting off of the highway, which is 5-ish minutes away. So stand by for the team arrival. We'll have a Ryan Day interview for you momentarily.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes. So the other part of the Penn State offense that we could talk about before we go to the team is Tyler Warren, their tight end. Mm-hmm. Last week against Wisconsin, only had 1 target downfield. It's like 9 overall targets, Most of them, a couple of them were behind the line of scrimmage, 3 or 4 of them behind the line of scrimmage on some shovels and things like that. So they didn't really stretch the field with them. I wonder how much of that was because of Drew Aller's injury. Bo Prabula, the backup, comes in, not necessarily the thrower of the group, even though he did go 11 for 13 in that game. But what are you expecting in terms of how they use him in the passing game? We know he's going to be lining up everywhere, but do you expect him to stretch the field more this time?
I think you're going to take a shot there because everyone has seen what has happened to Ohio State downfield in recent weeks. And, the Oregon game, I think, is probably going to be a little bit of an outlier this season. Ohio State fans and coaches certainly hoping it is an outlier this season. But you've seen shots downfield, you can hit them, and shots downfield, you can get a pass interference call.
Yeah.
Either one of those is you're making at least 15 yards down the field. And explosives are going to be a deciding factor, I think, in this game. So maybe you can pick up some of those you pick up 1 or 2 of those in the run game, 1 or 2 of those in the pass game. That is going to be potentially enough. We'll see. Buses are here, so we will have an interview with Ryan Day here shortly. Looks like he's going to be coming
Tom's walk over there to get Ryan Day.
Looks like he's going to be coming over here.
After we play back-up games like that, so a lot of work's been on everything on the offensive line figured out. Yeah, we got a good plan, and these guys had a good.
No, Ron, I know you talk Ohio against the world. I think this environment probably signifies it more than anything else. What kind of atmosphere do you expect in State College?
This is as good as any there is in the country, and anytime you're going to play on the road here at Penn State, it's going to be a great atmosphere, and our guys are excited about it.
Ryan, you said last week after the game, one of the words you used was play possessed with your defense.
That's right.
Stuff. What's sort of a watchword for tomorrow? I mean, you've laid it pretty out there what this game means for you guys. Start get the Indianapolis.
Yeah, I mean it's all on the line. Our best players got to play great, and we got to coach really clean. We also have to have poise. We got to play with violence. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you.
So the players are all filing in now, getting checked in. Got to see a few of them, perhaps. And we'll get back on camera here, and Tom can tell us everything that I missed. Anything that Ryan Day had to say.
Yes, I can tell you everything that I heard from Ryan Day, which was about 30% of what Ryan Day said.
Okay.
Expecting a loud, raucous atmosphere. Feeling pretty good about the offensive line, sounds like. They feel like they've got a plan for the game. Obviously, that's sort of encouraging. I think they I think he said they'd learned a little bit from the previous road trip, the previous trip to Oregon and all that. So there was, I'm assuming the folks at home probably had a better shot at hearing what he said than I did.
If we're missing anything,
a lot of buses, a lot of bus noise, a lot of yelling about rooms and that kind of stuff. So
don't forget your bags. Pick up your bags.
Yes. So lots of stuff. So if we missed anything, throw it in the comments, and then we will have Kevin read it back to us.
Yes, if we can hear him once the buses leave.
Yeah.
So, with all of that, we've talked about the Penn State offense, the Ohio State defense. Let's talk about the other side of the ball, the Ohio State offense. I did see Will Howard enter.
Good. He made the trip. That's encouraging.
So back home in Pennsylvania for Will Howard, wanting to prove or wanting to show Penn State that they made a mistake by not offering him. I went back and looked. Penn State that year got commitment from a quarterback from Bishop Gorman, and they signed the Bishop Gorman quarterback.
Was it Tate Martell?
No, it was not. It was the year after the Tate Martell's replacement, who is now a Cleveland Browns quarterback, Dorian Thompson-Robinson. And they signed two quarterbacks the year before that, so it didn't feel like that. I guess. Thank you. This is the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. Welcome. They didn't feel like there was enough room, I guess, in the boat for another quarterback. So he had offers from Kansas State, Kansas, I think Minnesota, Harvard, Yale. So ends up at the Yale of the Midwest, Ohio State.
Yeah, that felt like that was going to be a big story this week. He got asked one question at the very end of the press conference after the Nebraska game, and then we didn't get to talk to him during the week. We normally get a chance to talk to him. He's pretty excited. He was obviously excited. Talked about that he was excited. He was, this is a big game for him in terms of the season. A big game for him personally. I mean, he's going to have a whole lot of family and friends here. I mean, this is a big game for him. Being a fifth-year veteran guy, I think you would assume he'd be able to play under control and live, Tony, one of Brian Day's favorite phrases.
Yes. Play with emotion. Do not let emotion play with you. And, when he was asked about this game last week, I believe the exact quote, portion of it was, I'm stoked, can't wait. And then, as you said, we never talked to him again because, as you said, we thought it was going to be a bigger story. And the reason it wasn't is because they locked him down, which, it's unfortunate for us, but I completely understand it. You don't want a quarterback saying, not that he's going to say anything. He's not going to guarantee a win. He's not going to, say something out of turn. But also, you don't want to throw any kind of bulletin board material out there or have him say something that he then has to back up in terms of like, oh, now you said all of this, but you completed 60% of your passes and you threw 2 interceptions. Well, why are you still here?
Well, he did say, he talked for 10 seconds about it and said they didn't think I was good enough. And this is a paraphrase. It's not an exact quote, but it's pretty close. They didn't think I was good enough. I guess we'll find out find out next week if I was right. If they were right. So
I love that from your quarterback.
Oh, absolutely.
He wants this game, the Oregon game. He's going to never forget about that. Winning this one and then winning beyond this would go a long way, and that just being a footnote. That's just a part of the story. It doesn't have to be the entire story.
For sure, yeah. And that's, that was a game where he played well. He was 28 for 35 and threw for 300 and whatever yards and 326 yards. Had a nice, had a real nice day. Had the one play at the end that I'm sure he wishes he slid 1 second earlier, but that is a real fine margin thing, and he was certainly not the reason they did not win that game. So, yeah, we'll see. This is going to be another. He has now shown. He's now demonstrated that you go into a hostile atmosphere. That was a very loud, very hostile atmosphere. Handled it like a veteran quarterback should. Handled it like a veteran quarterback would. Now you got another opportunity to do that. Will not be dark at the end of the game. but will be loud throughout.
Might be a little breezy based on what
Might
we're experiencing
Be a little
today.
breezy. Yes. Yeah,
That's-
it is. It is supposed to be chilly tomorrow morning. I believe it was in the high 30s or low 40s in the morning. I think it's supposed to get up into maybe the low 60s towards the end of the day, but it's not. It is November now, and that means something in terms of the importance of the games, and it also means something in terms of the weather.
As Jim Tressel said, September is for pretenders, November is for coats.
Yes, coats, jackets, what have you. Yes.
Anything else with the Ohio State offense? The running game. At this point, I'm not expecting much. So even I don't want to waste any time talking about it because it's not going to happen. But if it doesn't happen, that is an issue. It should happen. Ryan Day said they feel pretty good about the offensive line. If you feel good about the offensive line, we know you feel good about the running backs. Why can't you get something going? You feel good about your schemes. You feel good about your coaches, your offensive coordinator, all of these things. They ran the ball really well until 2 games ago, and they haven't run it since. And even if they can do what they did against Oregon, I think Ohio State would take that right now because you've got the 2 runs for 70 yards total from Travion Henderson. If you can get a home run out of there, take that and go with it because I'm just not expecting much from the running game.
No, I don't think so. I mean, we were in the car with Kevin on the way over here, and he was doing a radio interview and shared that Ohio State had not hit 100 yards rushing in either of their last 2 games against Penn State. And that might not be the case again on Saturday. They might not get to 100 yards on the ground against Penn State. So, yeah, if you tell them that they can get to 70 yards on 2 plays and then even if it's 3 and some change the rest of the game, they probably would take that. I don't know if they're going to get there. If they do, that certainly is a huge, huge marker to me in terms of how that game probably plays out.
Yeah. The receivers, we've said it. We did the rewatch of the Wisconsin-Penn State game from last week, and watching the success that Wisconsin had throwing, and watching the success that they should have had throwing.
Watching the success that Wisconsin flushed directly down the toilet by throwing bad passes and failing to catch the good passes. Yeah.
So if the wind is fine, and I came out of that game thinking Ohio State can throw on these guys and throw pretty well, and then not just complete passes, but what happens after they complete them? What else are you doing with the ball? Because there might be more.
Well, Wisconsin's receivers, in addition to not catching the ball well, are also not particularly dynamic. You give me Jeremiah Smith in the open field, or Emeka Egbuka in the open field, or Cardinal Tate in the open field, or even Travion Henderson or Judkins in the open field ahead of probably just about anyone on that Wisconsin team, and I will take my chances with the guy in the scarlet and the gray. I think there's going to be opportunities there. I don't think this is not going to look like the first half of the 2021 Michigan State game. I think we need to set. I think we need to level set here a little bit. This is a good secondary. This is probably not quite as good of a secondary as Penn State has had in recent years. You go back to the Caleb King, Joey Porter Jr. I mean, some of those secondaries they've had in the last couple of years have had future NFL stars on there, and they have talent. I mean, they have A.J. Harris, who Ohio State really wanted a couple of years ago, probably would have been a Buckeye if Kerry Combs had stayed on the Ohio State staff. He went to Georgia, then transferred to Penn State. They have talent, but it's not absolute lockdown Thorpe Award-winning talent this year, which they have had in previous years. It feels like Ohio State, as you said, probably not going to be able to run the ball a ton. So if they're going to do it, they're going to have to run enough to keep Penn State honest, and then make your big plays in the passing game.
Yeah, and I don't think Penn State has the safeties that they've had in the past either. Kevin, do we have any questions in there that you want to?
Please thank Ryan Dawes and Mike Ferguson for their super chat donations. No questions attached.
All right, Ryan Dawes and Mike Ferguson, thank you for the
guys.
super chats. We appreciate that. If you do have questions, by all means,
Penn State
throw those in there.
in here says that this is going to be the best secondary Ohio State faces this season.
The best secondary Ohio State faces this season. So far, that would be Oregon.
Yeah,
Penn State.
But
maybe. And I guess my question with how good Penn State's secondary is, what are you basing that on? I mean, what's the best passing attack that Penn State has faced this year? Because
Illinois,
Bowling Green, USC probably, and USC had some success both on the ground and in the air against Penn State, and USC has not had that kind of success in other games. So I'm not here, put it this way. I'm not saying Penn State's not one of the top 2 secondaries Ohio State has faced so far this year. We'll see if they stack up to Oregon or not. Oregon's pretty good.
They did a good job.
It turns out the number 1 team in the country is pretty good, but the number 3 team in the country also pretty good.
But also, Will Howard threw for 326 yards against that Oregon secondary.
Sure.
I'm not going to dispute that because I think they're pretty close. So
yeah, well, and we've had this conversation on the Michigan Monday shows in previous seasons. When we're talking about the number 3 team in the country and the number 4 team in the country, and we're saying like, this might not be an area where they're great. That doesn't mean that they're Kent State in that area. That means, hey, the bar is pretty high in a top 5 matchup. Where are the relative weaknesses? It's not like, hey, this team's 134th in the country in this area. It's, hey, these teams are top 5 in a lot of areas. Where are they top 25 nationally, maybe?
I would say don't invoke MAC teams while we have a Penn State fan watching the show, especially from Ohio.
Yeah. Well, and that's that. I have trouble putting too much weight on that because it was a little earlier in the year. We're talking about the Bowling Green game.
Yeah, and they shut Bowling Green down in the second half.
Yeah,
so.
they did, and it's the beginning of the season. You're still figuring some stuff out. It's a MAC game. You're shuffling some guys around. You're probably not doing.
I was just trying to have some fun.
I understand, but people don't always
On the
appreciate.
internet, everybody understands.
People don't always appreciate your. Anyway, yeah, I think you can look at that game, and Ohio State fans, I'm sure, looking at that going, well, if Bowling Green did that, then certainly Ohio State must be ready to throw for 800 yards. It's like, well, I would encourage you to look at the Idaho-Oregon game and the
Indiana-Nebraska game.
Indiana-Nebraska game. I mean, this is not always a direct transitive property thing.
You got something, Kevin?
People want maybe your thoughts on how the reshuffled O-line is going.
The reshuffled offensive line, Tom. Go ahead.
So Ryan Day seems encouraged by things, which I don't know what else he's going to say. So I don't. Yeah. I mean, no, he has said that in the past. He's not said that on a Friday team arrival. He said that in the spring, where it's like, yeah, we're anywhere close to where we need to be. This is a problem. That was the spring of 2023. Basically said that at the end of the spring. I don't put a ton of stock in Happy Chat on team arrival, but I think there is a solution that makes sense to me. And, we do not have official word on Zen Mahalski. We'll have the official team availability report on Saturday morning for you. We'll have that show. Should be around 9 a.m. That will drop on our YouTube channel. We'll let you know as soon as we have that information. But based on Wednesday's interview with Ryan, it sounds like Zen Mahalski was trending like he was not going to play. And based on the fact that he got carted off last Saturday, my assumption is he was not going to play. So let's assume that Zen Mahalski's not in there. So you have to shuffle someone in the left tackle. And at that point, you don't have Josh Simmons, you don't have Zen Mahalski. So you could move a Josh Fryer over the left side, for example. You could, maybe George Fitzpatrick is the backup right tackle. I don't think that they're super keen on any of that. To me, in a game like this, against a veteran team, in a hostile environment, you go with veteran players. You do not have a great solution. You do not have a plan A type solution. You control what you can control. And the best way you can control stuff is with veteran guys who have sort of been through the fire before, played in hostile road environments. I'm going Donovan Jackson, left tackle, Carson Hinton, left guard. He was a starter all last year, played at Michigan, played in hostile environments. Notre Dame, yeah, I mean, has played in loud, hostile environments before and held up reasonably well. And then Seth McLaughlin, center, Tager Shabola, right guard, Josh Fryer, right tackle. To me, that's, I think, thinking like a college football coach where you control what you can control and you limit your floor as much as you can. You limit your floor by putting as many veterans in a place where you're trying to put guys in a position to succeed, and you're trying to not, Larry Johnson talks about this, not putting young guys in a position to where they're really set up to fail. I think I lead with that lineup based on the veteranness of it alone.
Kevin, you got
We got a super chat from King Bronco. So get ready.
We'll see if this is the last one we ever take.
It will. ye all is going to flail around, laid in the lion den, who had a caught in to holler about y'all soft, not tough like us. We got meat beans open. PS 8703.
Okay, thank you. The offensive line with
Hang on, I have to pull up the graphic that Michigan tweeted out on Friday, which I thought was, an interesting choice. Happy Halloween, hashtag go boo, with a graphic go boo, which in a weekend that there's a non-zero possibility they get blasted into low Earth orbit by Oregon and that the crowd does not respond to it well. I'm not sure this is the weekend I would have gone with go boo regardless of the adjacency to Halloween, but we'll see how it goes.
I think it's like 13-point line, something like that, 13 and a half. Yeah, I know J.J. McCarthy was supposed to be the honorary captain, and because Sharon Moore said that last week, hey, we're going to have J.J. McCarthy back. And J.J. McCarthy was like, sorry, I'm doing my hair.
I'm busy not playing for the Vikings this year due to injury. Got some local wildlife here. I don't know
what
that's all about.
Minnesota wild-neck goose.
Got a good question here
Yep.
from Warhug.
Okay.
A loss in this game means what for the Buckeyes?
A loss in this game means what for the Buckeyes? It means that, one, it's going to be miserable around Ohio and anywhere Ohio adjacent in terms of Buckeye fans and Ohio State. That's just feelings. What it really means is you got to go beat Indiana. You've got to beat Michigan, and there's probably a 70% chance you're still in the playoffs.
70% is probably low. I think my follow-up question to that is a loss by how many points?
Yeah.
If this is another game that Ohio State loses, like the Oregon game, where you're on the road, top 5 opponent, close game throughout, driving for the win at the end, and then you have, it comes down to one call, whatever it is at the end of the game. And again, we've talked about this 1,000 times, and I always feel like I need to qualify this. The whole game was decided by the one call. There were plenty of other opportunities earlier in the game. Yada, 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 blown call on the Will Kastner fumble, yada, yada, yada. I feel like I have to say this every time because there's someone in the comments who go, what are you saying? No, we're not saying. But close game comes down to the end, comes down to one play, comes down to one call at the end. I think that's a game where you look at, if Oregon's number 1 in the country and Ohio State just went on the road and played them to a full 60-minute game, literally down to the last second on the road, it tells me Ohio State's probably pretty close to the number 1 team in the country. If you're playing on the road at the number 3 team in the country and you have another game that comes down to the final 5 seconds, it's hard. It's hard for me to see them, the polls or the committee moving Ohio State down to 14 or something like that, just because they have 2 losses against top 5 teams.
Yeah, no, it comes down to how many other how many one-loss teams are out there floating around. The ACC, the way it's going right now, that could steal somebody's bid.
And the Big 12 too. There's a couple undefeated teams in the Big 12 . So there's a lot of it depends.
I think they still make it. 2 losses is always kind of the benchmark for an Ohio State program. Yeah. If you're 2 losses or 2 at the time, the number 3 team each time on the road, the committee's like, what? That's
right. If you're playing a close with a top 5 team, that means you're probably pretty close to a top 5 team. There's a difference between a 2-loss Ohio State team that's lost twice in the final minute against top 5 teams and would presumably have a win over Indiana in this case and Michigan in this case, as opposed to a 2-loss Missouri team that's also gotten blasted into low Earth orbit twice this season already and would even if they went out, have no quality wins. So it's kind of a different conversation.
Chad, Ryan Dawes, if this O-line does well tomorrow, how quickly do people ask why they haven't done the whole season? Completely forgetting Josh Simmons had a good season until his injury.
Well, I think the question will be, thank you, Ryan, for the super chat question there. If you couldn't hear, is if this offensive line does well, there may be some thought of why didn't they do this all season long? I think the question becomes, why didn't you do this against Nebraska? Whereas they went with what they thought would be the easiest fix. Mm-hmm. And Ryan Day talked last week when I asked him about just kind of the decision-making process. And he said they talked about getting a short-term solution and a long-term solution. This, to me, what they're doing now feels like the long-term solution. Last week, they were hoping it was a long-term solution, but it turns out like they didn't quite have the exhaust pipe, quite hung up there with COVID.
Yeah, I mean, this is we're assuming what they're going to do.
Yeah,
we're not reporting. We're assuming what they're going to do. If it works, and then Mahalski is back at some point, I think you're just at this point you're sticking with whatever works. You're sticking with it. Now, the offensive line thing works tomorrow, and Ohio State's able to run the ball, and Ohio State gets a road win over number 3. Boy, file that under good problems to have. Like at that point, if you're complaining at that point, like
Ryan's not complaining.
Not Ryan. I'm just saying there are too many people who will complain, who will ask that question at that point. But I think you have to kind of go, look, you got to take a long view here. There is, in the 12-team playoff era, there is a just win baby portion of this. You got to win your clunkers. They won their clunker last week. If you win your clunker last week, you win a big game this week, then you're in pretty darn good shape. The flip side of what happens if they lose, are they still in the playoffs, is what happens if they win. If they win this game, even if they lose to Indiana, somehow you're 10-2. You've got a road win over number 3 Penn State, who probably is not losing anything because their schedule's soft. That to me, you're probably functionally in the playoff.
And if whoever wins this game is perhaps penciled in as the 5 seed, which is one of the places to be.
Yeah, you're looking at the 5, 6, something like
you
that.
Get that 5 seed, you're facing the 12 in the first round. You're facing the 4, which is probably BYU.
Yeah.
In the quarterfinals, so it's a pretty good path, and you're getting one of those games at home, which I don't think initially I think Ohio State to be bad about, but then once it's here, it's like, okay, this is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
I got another question here from Rick S. My concern is that we struggle to run the ball, so then we go to short, quick passing game, and Penn State is sitting on those short routes.
That's a good concern because I'm wondering how effective those short passes will be. Now they need numbers when they throw those, because a lot of times they don't have the numbers, or when they do have the numbers, they're not throwing them. So is there anything more frustrating when you can't run the ball? So it's like, okay, we'll throw it out wide. It's like, well, that's no, they get tackled immediately. It's like you should have just run the ball for no gain instead of throwing the ball for a 3-yard loss.
Well, I think the other side of that is this is the conversation we're having with Oregon coming into the Oregon game. Like, well, they don't throw the ball downfield, so Ohio State's just going to sit on the throws short and sit on the throws of the sticks, and then, well, guess what? Sometimes that doesn't work. Sometimes they throw the ball over your head, and then it's cheating, and then it's not good. So there's only so much that you can sit on that stuff, because if you don't sit on, if Penn State's in a spot where if you're going to really press, you really kind of need to have a safety or two over the top to sort of cover your rear end on those, which means then you're probably opening things up a little bit in the run game. So maybe you don't need to lean on it quite so much.
I think that's also up to Will Howard as well, to not throw those. If this is the RPO, then you've got to make the right reads. When I asked Chip Kelly this past week on Tuesday how much of the reads were available for Will Howard, because it sure seemed like the running game looked a little bit like last year and the 2 years prior, where it was like, boy, if he would have just kept the ball on his handoff, he could have kept going. And it didn't seem like, it just felt like these can't all be reads, or else he would have read that defensive end. And Chip Kelly said, no, it's about the same number as always. Now, it doesn't really answer
That's
this
sort
question.
of an answer. It's a type of answer.
I'm thinking you'll see some of that that's one way to make the running game more effective, is to use the quarterback more, slow down those defensive ends from crashing.
Market X says, if OSU beats PSU, buy your tickets in Indy before the typical shoe Blue Bears, so we can have a hostile environment.
Okay, so if Ohio State beats Penn State, buy your tickets to Indy. There is a complicating factor in that you still have Indiana, which is a sentence to say out loud vis-a-vis the Big Ten championship game. Ohio State still has to beat Indiana. If Ohio State beats Penn State in Indiana, they're in. I mean, there's probably some complicated tiebreaker where you get down to a certain fifth tiebreaker scenario because Penn State doesn't play Indiana, Penn State doesn't play Oregon, Oregon doesn't play Indiana, Oregon doesn't play, like there's some scenario there. But if Oregon wins out and Ohio State wins out, I don't think there's any scenario where Ohio State doesn't get in. But they do have to beat Indiana.
Well, and if there is, Big Ten just changed the rule for that. Kevin, do we have anything else?
Yeah, Warpug says, do you think it's
You're going to be in the same building as Tom Allen tomorrow. I'd watch my mouth.
Sorry.
Yeah, shut your damn mouth. Warpug says, do you think it's realistic to believe the new O-line can improve over last week?
Is it realistic to believe the new offensive line can improve over last week? I think it's realistic to believe that it can improve over last week.
I mean, they couldn't play much first.
Yeah.
I mean, it better, I think, is the answer.
You're only as good as your weakest link, Tom. That's a saying that I've often said.
Mm-hmm.
And it's truer on the offensive line. And you saw that weak link, and you saw it get exposed and limit what they can do with throwing the ball and, frankly, running the ball. They've not run the ball since Josh Simmons left the game.
No.
So they need to get back to that. And if Donovan Jackson can help with that, which you think he actually be felt more in the running game, that's fantastic.
Yeah, if they do go with Donovan Jackson and Carson Hinzman, you're going to have a little more zazz. What's
Zazz,
what's
yes.
the made-up word we want to have? You may have a little more je ne sais quoi in the run game.
No, I don't make up words. Don't make up French words. Just make up American words.
You may have more biff, more pow, Tony. Lots of the Batman words in the run game. So I think there's a reasonable expectation that it could be better in some areas. I think they're also potentially going to take a little bit of a different approach to pass pro. You may see more 6 and 7 man protections than you did last week, just because I think they may be looking at this and thinking, if Will Howard has time, there are going to be plays to be had in the passing game, but you got to give them time, and you can't just rely on the 5 guys to just be able to give him 3 seconds.
Is this why you were so eager for me to take the 3-point bold prediction of all of the Ohio State tight ends combined for 4 yards and Tyler Ward? Is this why? Because you thought, you know what? They're just going to be in pass pro.
They might be in pass pro quite a bit. And this is also a situation where we talked a lot about the impact of the loss of Josh Simmons. Will Kazmarek is the best blocking tight end they've got. So he is, he's presumably, we're assuming, going to be out for weeks to a month to whatever. There's no indication he's out for the season yet, but we're not expecting him this week, obviously. Is it a coincidence that we got Bennett Christian at interviews this week? That felt a little like a tip-off that you might see more Bennett Christian this week.
Yeah, for sure. I would expect that. Now, there was the earlier super chats. There were no questions. I'm going to use the question on that. Can we turn the camera around and show Kevin?
Kevin looks like Kevin is bundled up like in the nook of the north over there.
It is cold.
His blood hasn't thickened up yet.
It's cold. We're in a wind tunnel.
I need more bourbon.
I'm going to currently feels like 45 degrees. I think what we're learning here is that my 2 friends here have not spent as much time in hockey rinks this year as I have. My blood is constantly at about a 10W30.
How many more do you want? I got questions.
How many more you got, brother?
GC Rockets, is Denzel Burke ready to play? He didn't look all that great against Nebraska.
Denzel, he looked better against Nebraska than he did against Oregon. He got back to basics, as we talked about before. So I'm expecting that to continue. Now, Penn State's receivers are better than Nebraska's. So this is going to be more of a test. Not quite up to par, up to standard of the Oregon receivers. I think everybody would agree. So this is another good test. It's nothing that he hasn't faced and succeeded against before. But again, you've got to stay disciplined in this. There's going to be some wonky stuff, some double passes. Don't get too aggressive. He's very aggressive against the screens. So watch for that pump and to go. Just be careful. Stay disciplined.
Does it look like a nuclear winter behind us on the screen? Might need to iris that down. Just saying. If you stand up, it'll warm you up.
It is hot. I have that like all the way.
Okay. All right.
You're not like pegging on.
Okay.
Kevin?
Looks like
Nick
Hodor
Ritchie.
behind us. No, Hoff. Sorry.
Who gets the majority of carries tomorrow? Judkins or Dickerson?
Who gets the majority of carries?
Will Howard.
It might be Will Howard. I think you might see a fairly
10,
even
10, 10.
three-way split between those guys. I don't think you're seeing anyone getting the true bell cow 23 carries kind of game. I could see 12, 11, 10 for those three guys, something in that neighborhood. And if one guy is going to have 14 carries, who is it? Because I could make an argument for any of the three.
Yeah, well, Travion Henderson had about that. I think against Oregon, they kind of went to him. It just depends. Tell me who's doing the most in the second half, in the first half. I'll tell you who's going to be doing more in the second half.
It feels like cheating.
Well, I'm just saying. I would, in terms of some receivers, I would like to see Emeka Egbuka, Jeremiah Smith get the ball on the ground and this with some jet sweeps and stuff like that. Just to get back to that, the east-west, the north-south, all that stuff.
Last week, 4 targets, 0 rushes to Jeremiah Smith. This week, how many targets plus rushes?
Well, when you say targets, I'm thinking at least 8. And then I think he's going to get a carry in there. You've got weapons, you've got unique weapons. Use them in a game like this. I think Ryan Day said it yesterday or Wednesday that your best players in these games, they're going to rely on them to make plays. And he's one of your best players, and he can make plays that nobody else in the game can. So, use it.
Yeah.
Didn't get dressed up for nothing.
Clever and witty. I really wonder what Justin Fry is looking at. The Ohio 2024 class was loaded with offensive line. We only got the Armstrong twins. I want to add on that. Remember, they had Martinet, and they decommitted off of there. But listen, they also had Ian Moore out of Indiana, which is just really an extension of Ohio.
And Gabe Van Sickle out of Michigan. I mean, it's
and I think you have to look at. There were a bunch of guys out of St. Ed's, right? Like Luke Hamilton, Ben Roebuck, those guys. I think did they both go to Michigan. I know Luke Hamilton went to Michigan.
Yeah, I believe so,
I mean, none of those guys have done anything yet. None of the guys at Ohio State have done anything yet. I think it's way too soon to make any kind of judgments on true freshman offensive linemen because either number one they're playing and that's an automatic like, all right, this guy's going to be amazing, or they're not playing and it's ask again in 9 to 18 months.
You're talking about Paris Johnson and Jackson Carman and maybe Alex Boone in Ohio in the last 20 years that played as freshmen.
Where was Michael Jordan from?
Michigan.
Okay.
And I don't know that Alex Boone, I don't think played much.
No.
And Paris Johnson, he didn't play much. He was a backup guard or backup tackle, right tackle, I think at that time. So it takes nothing that happened in the 2024 class impacts this offensive line this year.
No.
In the least, in my opinion.
And that's something that's been a conversation on our board as well. Why don't they have these guys ready to go? It's like almost none of the 2024 offensive linemen are playing any meaningful snaps anywhere in the country right now. That's just not the typical timetable for an offensive lineman.
Yeah, it's the few can do it. Kevin?
Penn State fan on the lead academy, who I've been calling lead paint on here, because don't go sideline to sideline. They're too fast.
Well, don't go sideline to sideline. Say this too fast. You're going to go sideline to sideline because they like to tire out the defensive linemen. Mm-hmm. Now, don't do it just, keep getting nothing. But they want to go – you got the entire field. So you're going to stretch the entire field however you can. They like to tire out those defensive linemen and then get them back to the line. I would like to see them, Ohio State, run some tempo. Penn State had some issues getting lined up against Wisconsin. They're having trouble getting lined up. So if you can force the issue that way and just have them running all over the place. Again, don't do it if it's not working.
Right. You have to be able to sustain drives. But if you can sustain drives, you pick up that first down and then maybe run some tempo. I think Penn State is too fast. Sure, this is going to be one of the best teams Ohio State has played. This is unquestionably, without any doubt, by 100,000 miles, the best team Penn State's going to play during the regular season. So how is Penn State going to handle it?
Yeah.
We'll find out. And this time tomorrow, we'll know a heck of a lot more about Penn State than we do. I think we'll know more about Ohio State, especially on the offensive line. We're going to know a lot more about Penn State because Penn State could win this game by 2 touchdowns or lose this game by 2 touchdowns, and boy, that really changes what this season looks like for the Nittany Lions.
Yeah, Kevin, how many we got? We got more.
I'm just cherry picking at this point.
All right, how long do we want to go? We're at.
I think the listeners deserve at least 2 to 3 more hours.
2 to 3 more hours.
15 of them right now.
All right, what's next?
Get colder.
I'm okay. It's my hands that get cold.
Shoot, I didn't think I was really.
Do you have extra gloves?
Mika Hanna hopes that they get Brandon Ennis involved more.
Getting Brandon Ennis involved more would be interesting because people complain about Larry Johnson's rotation. Brian Hartline played 3 wide receivers last week.
Yeah, I mean, which one would you like to take off the field? Because we're talking about them using tight ends and running backs and blocking, so you're probably not running a lot of 4 wide. They don't run a lot of 10 personnel anyway. Who are you taking off the field?
Well, you rotate. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, who's tired? Who just ran a deep route? The problem is
it depends. If they run 48 plays again this week, no one will be tired.
And part of the problem was the deep routes turned into touchdowns, so they were able to come off and get a breather. But I'm wondering if at some point we see some of that because didn't we see Bryson Rodgers and Brandon Ennis earlier on in the game against Oregon?
Yeah, and I think that the 46 or 48 or whatever it was plays last week goes into that a lot because if you have a bunch of 3-play drives, you don't need to have if you got Jeremiah Smith on the field for 3 plays and he goes and sits down on the bench while the other team has a drive, he's not still tired from running 3 routes or blocking 3 times, and you're not pulling him off the field if he's not tired. So
get first downs, you'll get more players on the field.
Exactly right. You should want to see Brandon Ennis on the field more because it probably means more sustained drives for Ohio State.
Yeah, Kevin.
People wanting to know when our next show is going to be.
When is our next show going to be?
Kevin wants to know when the next show.
No, seriously.
I'll tell you what.
Is there
how many thumbs up do we have on YouTube right now?
I can't see it from my panel.
Okay.
Okay. Well, someone in the chat put how many thumbs up we have right now on this video, and then as soon as Kevin finds that out, if that number goes up by 25, we could do another half hour.
Half hour when?
Later tonight.
Okay.
Later tonight. Yeah, we have to go. Yeah. We do have to go eat dinner at some point.
Right. Now, we did have a nice lunch.
We did have a nice lunch. Yes, we have a Hungry Huddle episode coming for you as well. One of the most shocking meals I have ever eaten in my life in terms of expectation versus results. That's all we'll say right now. If you saw if you follow Tony on Twitter, you have probably already said something mean about it. But that's okay. You'll see later. But yeah, we had a delightful lunch, a delightful regional delicacy that I was not expecting to be anything other than a regular regional delicacy.
Yes, and I will never do any other kind of regional delicacies other than what we've done. I'm not going to go to Minnesota and do some lutefisk or anything like that. We will only do Juicy Lucy's in Minnesota. That is the
Chicago.
Malort.
No.
It's bad enough we had to do Pequot.
There's a place in Chicago that has been advertised as having the best sandwich in the country.
Okay.
It's on the south side. I've already been there, so I'm kind of cheating. It is quite good. So it is a breaded steak sandwich. We'll get there. Listen. Hey, you got to take this one game at a time, and that's true for the dining segments as well.
Yep. All right.
We either have 24 or 59. I haven't gotten a straight answer how many thumbs up we have.
People are absolutely killing me.
If there are 400 people watching, how is there only 25 or 49 or 59 thumbs up?
I'm going to turn
Twitter.
X.
If someone uses a stupid name, you don't have to use it.
That would be Tony.
Anyway.
Next.
We have 74 likes, so if we're basing that off of 59.
Get to 100.
Yeah, get us to 100 likes and we'll do another show later tonight.
That's when the algorithm kicks in anyway. So then get to 100 and we'll stay here for another hour. No,
we'll do it from the hotel.
Kevin?
Mittens?
We're up to 76. Cheryl is giving us a play-by-play as it's going on. Somebody said Eaton Park is terrible. Don't eat there.
Okay.
Somebody gave us a brewery to go to, but I'm assuming it's here and not Bedford, so that's a no-go. Murphy Serafino wants to make sure that it's going to be a hungry huddle.
Yeah, what? Dinner?
Not tonight.
No, we've already done. Yeah. Lunch is a hungry huddle. Yes, we shot it. We walked out of there going, this might be one of our best ones we've done.
We could make it 20 minutes.
Yeah, well, Kevin can, not us.
Thanks. A lot of people are putting in their.
It wasn't a put down. It was because you're the one editing it.
But he just heard you say words, just assumed it was bad.
Yeah, but that is true. Of course, Tom wears dark blue according to Odysseus.
Hey, can we talk about Tom and your University of Toronto
great
sweatshirt?
There's blue on it, and there's
they change it when they join a conference.
There's a Blue Jackets hat.
Yeah.
I don't think Blue Jackets hat should be offensive.
What about the jean, boy?
Well, they're colored like jeans are. Like pretty much every jean that
Jeans or black jeans.
Green
Listen,
jeans.
I only roll with Levi Strauss original 1800s. I go down into like the mine shaft and pull the old jeans out of there. Yes,
Those
so
are the best buttons.
they are the best buttons.
Kevin?
Yes.
There's an 86 right now, according to Cheryl. Butch Jones says,
Thank you, Cheryl.
my wife told me I'm taking her plant shopping tomorrow. She says she wants to leave at 11:30. Oh joy!
Plant
So-
shopping. I don't mind plant shopping.
Like power plant.
Here's what I'm gonna say. You're changing clocks already this weekend.
Mhm.
Fall back a day earlier.
Right. Yeah.
So now you're leaving at 10:30. I'm assuming you're not going to like the dark side of the moon. You're running to whatever Home Depot or something. So you got an hour and a half. You could listen. I never love the fallback. Really don't care for it at all. But you can use this to your advantage this weekend. I think you just celebrate standard time one day early and make everyone happy.
And if you show up early places, that's fine. You can show up early to places, and it's better than showing up late. So that's a good idea, Tom. You don't usually have good ideas, especially when I suggest things about plant shopping. Your ideas have notoriously been horrible. This one might be your best.
What plant are you buying in November except for mums?
You can.
It's gonna be like
This is a.
Can you save it for the hotel show when we start talking about mums full time?
Listen. This is a great time of year to plant things once the trees go dormant. This is actually a good time of year to plant trees and bushes.
What about
and shrubs.
poinsettias, Dirk?
Those are poisonous for cats.
Yeah, I know. That's why we don't have any. That's why we stick with the mums, like Kevin said.
You have Mr. Business.
I know. He's an inside cat.
Okay.
I don't allow plants inside,
80
other than all of the fiddly fig trees that we have had to buy over the years. No, I'm not done. These things are expensive unless you find them on sale. It's like a lot of things. Anyway, Kevin, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, Lord, I don't know
The
where
mums, though.
Are you saying mum's the word?
Mike Ferguson says Tom doesn't even try to hide it anymore about your apparel.
He loves the University of Toronto, and I don't want to hear one darn word about it. This man has been to the city,
The Fighting Boutiques.
has been supportive of them for many, many years, and their athletic program. A lot of people don't know about their athletic program, but they've got one. It's not very good. It's not very major or anything like that, but they have enough of a program to have apparel. So show some respect.
Ryan Dawes says,
But really, that is a Michigan shirt under there.
Ryan Dawes says it's definitely one of the best shows ever. And I say, we haven't talked about throwing sandwiches.
So one of the best shows ever. I'd like you to share your work. I mean, Kevin's cold. Yes, that's fantastic. That's hilarious.
That is, yes.
There's a pretty sunset, but that's over there. You can't see it.
More light on you now than you did.
Yeah.
The internet's okay. So
The
far.
internet's good. We had a nice Ryan Day rival interview. I mean, lots to talk
We've had
about.
worse.
Lots to talk about. You know what? We've talked about this. We've already recorded the morning show. We did that over at Beaver Stadium. I don't think we've talked about Julian Fleming at all yet by name, at least on these couple shows. That's a really interesting sort of subplot to this whole game. It's kind of on the same level as Will Howard didn't get recruited by Penn State. So it's a little bit of a subplot, but it's kind of an interesting story that we haven't really talked about.
Yeah, I can't believe Penn State didn't recruit Julian Fleming.
They did.
They did. No, he I think when he left for Penn State or left and then ended up in Penn State, people expected more production, even though there's never really been a lot of production. It felt like he was trying to do his Jameson Williams thing.
Mm-hmm.
But what we're seeing now from Julian Fleming is also kind of what we saw at Ohio State, except I don't know how often he's starting here. Like he's one of their 4 receivers that roll in here. He was consistently starting at Ohio State the last year or two, but in a role that is not like what Carnell Tate is doing, not like Jeremiah Smith or Emeka Ibuka are doing. He was more of a, just move pieces around, clear out defenders, block.
Yeah.
We see that from Carnell Tate as well, but he's not the point getter, the reception target guy that we thought. He's what, 4th on the team in receptions, tied for 4th or so among the wide receivers.
Yeah, and it's not a particularly dynamic group of wide receivers. Harrison Wallace picked up, I think, the best numbers last week against Wisconsin. But this is a team that really numbers wise in the passing game, Tyler Warren's kind of the guy you're really looking at. And Fleming last week had a catch on the first drive of the game, and it was like, oh, look at it, boom, big first down. And then that was the only catch he had all game. He got they threw to him one more time on like a 3rd and 1, and he was wide open and just dropped it. And then that was it. They didn't throw the ball his way the rest of the game. The talent is there. The talent has always been there. He does a lot of the little stuff in terms of the block. I mean, the blocking he's always been one of the best blocking wide receivers out there. So he's a guy you're going to see out there a lot. It just, for whatever reason, has not translated to reception, shiny reception numbers. But I will still, he's one of those guys where I will believe that it will never happen for him when his career is over. I'm still kind of like waiting for, at some point, he'll have a 70-yarder in a big moment.
Yeah, well, and he did that a couple times in Ohio State against Iowa.
Yeah,
had touchdowns in 5 straight games when it came back in 2022.
Yeah.
So the potential was certainly there. It's just never quite hit the realization.
A back-to-back from Odysseus. In Pennsylvania, you have a Heinz eating contest.
So that reminds me.
What? How could this possibly remind me? Oh, that is right. I do need to have it.
Up to something?
Hang on.
Where's the Hunt's factory? Across the road. Pickle flavored ketchup. You son of a.
Heinz has pickle flavored ketchup. I have been sitting on that. That was in my inactive tabs in Chrome. I thought it's
pickle
flavored ketchup. I thought, hey, I know 2 guys who.
You got peanut butter in my chocolate.
Yeah, exactly. You got pickles in my.
Now you throw that in with the Whataburger spicy ketchup. Now you got 3 good things that all.
Baby, you got a stew going.
Now you just ruined perfectly good spicy ketchup. And then the second one is pretzel eating challenge. Who wins, Tom, Tony, or Devin?
What kind of
pretzels?
Like soft pretzel?
Yeah. No, we need more information.
Any ends?
Yeah, you let us. You provide us more. I need very specific brand,
Roll
style.
Gold.
Yeah, are we talking pretzel sticks? Are we talking like big stadium pretzels? Like
Michigan State soft pretzel.
Michigan State soft pretzel.
Yeah, I can do 2 tops just because I don't want to do more. Well, that's right. I don't know how far I can go at Michigan State. I've never been allowed.
That's hard pretzels.
Oh God,
my mouth is already so.
You win. No.
All the moisture from my body is.
Kevin wins with 3.
I'm not going to say 2 jars.
Yeah, no, I'm
coward.
If we're having a soft pretzel conversation, I'm much more willing to have that. Like the dry pretzels, I can do those for a little bit, but I'm not like at some point your mouth just turns to sawdust.
And I'm thinking you do the cinnamon dust Annie Ann's, and then what I would probably do is just you slam it in the water or the Kool-Aid, you squeeze it, and then you eat it, hot dog style.
I have seen these. I know I've seen this at the.
What about churros? I'm sorry.
I know I've seen this at the Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse or whatever it is where the Cavs play. I was up there for a Cleveland Monsters hockey game a couple years ago, and they have a place where they sell like little soft pretzel balls, but then they have like a bar of fixins, including like cream cheese frosting and sprinkles and chocolate chips and all that kind of stuff. That's I don't know how many I would eat, but it is too many.
It's like the size of an orange. You just bite it like
not the size of an orange, but like maybe a little golf ball, maybe golf ball size, give or take. Yeah, that was pretty good.
Bigger than a donut hole.
Like a donut hole.
That's a really good show, guys. We are here live.
Number 3 versus number 4. Top 5 matchup.
Did we somewhere around 90?
Well,
did you like it yet, Kevin? Get on YouTube. Like it. Let's get on our phones.
Sounds like people are that interested in the show later.
That's all right.
92.
92.
Have to go drink it.
Kevin, got anything else?
No, we're.
Oh yeah.
We're caught up. Members of the Ohio State staff telling us that it's cold.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. All right. Do we want to take more questions? Do we want to wrap it up?
Okay. Kevin, who looks like he's about ready to suffer a 3rd-degree frostbite.
That scene at the end scene of in The Shining? Jack Nicholson is frozen. That is Kevin. So as I'm if you could all please hit the thumbs up. If you have not yet,
If
we
you're
would
watching on
appreciate it.
YouTube, if you're watching on Twitter, join us on YouTube. So
Yeah.
hit the thumbs up.
Yeah.
Watch on X. Join us on Twitter.
Thank you all of you who are watching. And of course, you should find us at
Kevin's about to be RX, all right?
find us at BuckeyeHuddle.com. Become a premium member. Check us out on the message board behind the paywall. There, all kinds of stuff, team stuff, recruiting stuff, X's and O's. If you are into those sorts of things, come check us out at BuckeyeHuddle.com. So thank you all for tuning in, and we'll talk to you guys later.